Today, you and I and Candy over here, we're gonna build this very cool responsive website in WordPress using Elementor. We'll just be building the homepage, not a fully functional online store, but the tools and techniques we'll be using can be used to create pretty much any kind of website. You're gonna learn a lot of the important basics, plus a few neat tips and tricks on how to build websites in Elementor and, in general, better. All of the tools you need, all of the links, all of the images, the text, the design elements, the CSS, everything I created and used for this tutorial will be available down below so you can follow along without any issues. With that said, we'll be using the following. First off, we're going to be using local WP so we can install WordPress on our computer without buying or worrying about hosting. Second off, we're going to be using the Hello Elementor theme. To build our website, we're going to be using Elementor and Elementor Pro. But don't worry if you don't have Elementor Pro, you're going to be able to do most of the things or all of the things in some way, shape, or form with just the free version. We're also going to be using SVG support and child theme configurator plugins. As our browser, we're going to be using Mozilla Firefox. Now you can really use any browser you like, but for web development, I really prefer Mozilla because I find it the easiest to work with. And we'll also be using a ruler browser extension so we can measure out spaces and see if things are aligned properly. You'll also find chapters down below so you can quickly find the part of the video you need. So now that we got all of that out of the way, let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is install local WP. This is going to allow us to develop the site locally on our own computer without having to worry about servers and hosting. So just go ahead and head on over to localwp.com, press download for free, choose your platform, in my case it's Windows, fill in your credentials, and get it now. It's going to start downloading. And once it's finished, just open it up and then just follow the process of installation. And then just press run local and finish. And you're going to see this user interface. It's really simple. You can tell I already have a few websites here, but I'm going to make a new one. Just press add local site on the bottom left and let's create a new site. Name your site. In my case, I'm just going to name it Ver YouTube Tutorial and continue. And then just choose preferred. Let's just keep it simple. Fill in your credentials. So this is going to be your admin account on WordPress. So I'm just going to fill in mine and press add site. And it's that easy. Now we have a WordPress website on our own computer. It's going to finish up in a second. And then we're just going to go ahead and open it up. And now it's added the site and it automatically opens it. So all we have to do now is copy and paste this link, or you can open the site. But if I do that, it's going to open in Chrome and I want to open it in Mozilla. So I'm just going to copy it, paste it here. Now it's going to open up the site, but I need to access the admin dashboard. So I'm just going to go ahead and type in a /WP -admin. Now just log in with the credentials you entered earlier and log in. And now you can tell we are in our WordPress dashboard. Now we have to take care of a couple of things here. So the first thing we're going to do is change the theme. You can tell currently our website looks like this. This is the standard theme. We're just going to change it. Go ahead and go over to Appearance, Themes. And over here we're going to click Add New. Then just search for Hello Elementor. I had it over there, but if you don't have it, you're going to have to search for it. So then just press install. And activate. Now our website looks like this, but we still have a couple of things to do regarding the theme. So let's go ahead and add our first plugin. Go to Plugins and press Add New. Now we're just going to search for a plugin called Child Theme Configurator. You can just go ahead and search for child theme and you're going to find it is the first result here. Just install that. We're going to install a child theme. And the reason we're going to do that is because we're going to be using a little bit of CSS, and you're usually going to be using a little bit of CSS. But if your theme gets updated and you don't have a child theme, you're going to lose all of those changes. So we use a child theme so we can add in things like CSS, but still keep them when the main theme gets updated. So go ahead and activate that. And now we're just going to go over to Tools child themes. It's really simple. We're just gonna keep everything as is and press analyze. Then just scroll down and press create new child theme. And you can tell it created a child theme. We're just gonna go ahead and go over to our appearance themes again. And now we have a theme here, Hello Elementor Child. Just go ahead and activate that one. And we're gonna delete all of the ones we don't need because you wanna keep everything as clean as possible. So just go ahead and press all of them and press delete. So just go ahead and do that for all of them. And now we're done with our themes. So we can go ahead and go over to plugins and press deactivate and delete this plugin. We don't need it anymore. So the next plugin we're gonna have to upload is gonna be an SVG support plugin. So just go ahead and type in SVG. And we want this one, SVG support. Just install it and activate it. And what this is gonna do is it's gonna allow us to upload SVGs, which is a scalable vector graphics format, without any issues, which means we're going to be able to upload our logos or our icons and stuff like that in a vector format, which is going to allow us to make the image smaller, bigger, without any issues or loss of quality. Plus, they are very tiny compared to PNGs or JPEGs, which is great for website speed. So go ahead and activate that one as well. We're just going to leave that as is. Now, the thing we need to do now is add in Elementor. So go ahead and again add a new plugin and search for Elementor. Install now, activate it. You already know how it goes. We can just go ahead and skip all of this. It's just a setup. We're gonna do this later in WordPress directly. So just skip, and it's gonna take you to your front page. But we're not quite there yet. So let's go back. Over here are an admin bar, or just, add in the link again and go wp.-admin. And we're going to add in Elementor Pro. Now, adding Elementor Pro is going to be a little bit more, not difficult, but it's going to take an extra step because you can't just search for it and add it. You can just search for it here. So the way we're going to install that is we're going to go ahead and go over to our Elementor account. See, there's no Pro here. Or you can go into plugins, go Pro, but it's going to take you here. If you already have it, just go over to your Elementor account, log in, and go under your subscriptions, and then just press download zip. This is going to download the plugin to your computer. Then go ahead and add new plugin, but this time we're going to upload a plugin. So just go upload, browse, and find the plugin, Elementor Pro zip, and install it. Once it's installed, just go ahead and activate it, and then just connect and activate, and that's all you have to do really if you already have it. If you don't, you're gonna have to buy it, but for the purposes of this tutorial specifically, you don't really need it. It's gonna be helpful, but it's not a must. So if you're just trying to learn, you definitely don't need to buy it yet. But if you're trying to sell websites professionally, I definitely recommend getting it. So now we have everything we need in the backend. If this were a live site, I would install an SEO plugin, a security plugin, and a few other things. But for now, this is everything we need. So let's go ahead and go on over to pages. And you're going to see 3 pages here. Just delete all of them. Just trash them. You don't need them. We're going to make a new one. And press add new. I'm going to name it home. And then I'm going to go ahead and click publish. And once I click publish, just go ahead and press edit with Elementor. And now we're getting into the fun stuff. So the first thing we have to do, we wanna hide this page title. So go ahead and go on over to your bottom left corner, press settings, and press hide title. Just press update. Don't always press update after every change, but do press update often so you don't lose your work. So the next thing we want to do is just go ahead and click preview changes. It's going to take you to this website. You can also simply just put in the URL, but we're going to go ahead and go on over to customize. Now, once you're here, let's change the site identity. This is going to be your site title, your site logo, and your tagline. So I'm just going to change the tagline and the logo. So my tagline is going to be an awesome tutorial. And my logo, I'm going to go ahead and press select logo, select files, and we're going to go ahead and upload our logo. So let's go ahead, upload to var logos, and just upload the var logo original.svg. Let it upload and press select. Skip cropping, and let's go ahead and publish this. Then go back here, and we're gonna go ahead and go over to homepage settings. We want your homepage displays to be set to static page, and just select the page you just created, home. Now what this is gonna do is once we type in our URL, it goes directly to our homepage. Now we're left with this. It's kind of a mess. Let's just go ahead and go over to our Elementor and just press F5 to refresh it, or you can access it through here. Whichever way, just go ahead and get back into the Elementor. Now, once you're here, you're gonna see the header and the footer are all messed up. Don't worry about that. We're gonna do those at the end, because a lot of the things we're gonna go through and learn here are gonna help us build those really quickly. So once we're in Elementor, we have to set our global fonts and global colors. So go ahead and press this hamburger menu at the bottom, at the top left. Go ahead and go to site settings and press global colors. Now, if you look at the design and copywriting, you can tell we have a few colors here. So let's go ahead and just add in those. So I'm gonna set the first color as the primary color. I'm gonna set the text color as also the primary color, because I want it to be a very deep, rich green, but not a pure black. So the secondary, I'm gonna put in this one. And for our accent color, which is gonna be this one, I'm just gonna put it in here. And now we need to add in a few custom colors. So go ahead and add 2 custom colors. The first one we're just gonna name background 1. And it's gonna be this one. And the second one is gonna be background 2, and just add in this one. Now we just need a white, so let's just go ahead and make a white color. It's just gonna be easier. And we have all of our custom colors. Go ahead and press update. Now we just have to set the fonts. Now let's go over to global fonts, and I'm just gonna set all of these to my body font, because I really don't make headings using these global fonts, but you can if you wish to. I'm just gonna put all of them as Inter, so I don't get rubato, you know, in any widget accidentally. So I'm just gonna set Inter for everything. Keep it simple. And press update. Our fallback font family is gonna be sans serif, because Inter is a sans serif font. So we're just gonna keep that as is. Press X at the top, and we're in our live page now. Now we're gonna start off by making the first section. So just go ahead and press this big red plus. Now the way Elementor works currently is it's built with sections, columns, and widgets. The section is the largest part, and inside the section you have columns. So this is what we're choosing here. We're choosing how many columns we want and how we want them to be in terms of size and layout. And then inside columns you have the actual content in the form of widgets. For example, headings, texts, images, and icons and stuff like that. We can tell we have one big column here, and we have another column here that is split up into multiple intersections and columns. An intersection is a widget that allows you to split up a column into more columns, pretty much. So we have 2 here. So let's go ahead and press 2. Now the way we're going to do this, let's start off with this. This is simpler. First off, we're going to go ahead and go over here and drag in a heading widget. Now we have our heading. First off, let's go ahead and change the text. The text is "Watch Life Happen." So I'm just going to go ahead and paste that in. Now we're just going to go over to style. And at the typography, we're going to change it from Inter to Spectral, because that is our second font. So I want it to be bigger. So let's go ahead and go at the size, go from pixels to rem. You can use whichever, but rem is more responsive, and I just prefer working with it. I think it's easier and cleaner. So just go ahead and let's put that in as 5 rem. That looks pretty good. So now we have our first text. Now we need another, and we're gonna go ahead and use a text editor. So just go ahead and drag that in right below here. You can see everything you're doing in this navigator over here. You can see we have a section. We have one column with a heading and a text editor, and we have another column that is currently empty. So once we drag in that text editor, let's go ahead and copy the text. And you're gonna tell there are these spacings around everything. Now, what that is its margins and paddings. Now, simply put, a margin is the space around an element's border, while padding is the space between an element's border and the element's content. So the margin property controls the space outside of an element, and the padding property controls the space inside of an element. Now that sounds very confusing, but the easiest way you're gonna really understand how they work is by doing and using them. So let's just go ahead, and I think by the end of this tutorial, you're gonna have a pretty good understanding of this. So by default, Elementor is gonna add in a 10 pixel padding on all 4 corners to every column. Now we're just gonna go ahead and remove that by going to pressing this or accessing it through the navigator here and going to advanced, and at the padding, just unlink it, and you're gonna see it disappears. Now we have our column without any paddings. You might have noticed there was a spacing here, and now there's no spacing here. That's a very annoying bug in Elementor. I'm gonna show you how to get rid of it later. It kind of got away from me here. It doesn't happen always. So now what we want to do is we want to change this section to be full width. It's currently boxed, which means that whatever number you set here is going to be the maximum width it's going to display at, but we want it to be full width. So it's going to go from corner to corner on any device. So we set that to full width, and let's go ahead and change the column's background because we have it. It's a gray background here. So let's go ahead and go on over to our column. You can also access all of this through the navigator here. And if you can't see the navigator, just go ahead and go over here and open it that way. Now let's edit the column and go to style, and at the background type we're going to set it to classic and set the color to our background 2 color. This is why global colors are awesome. You can use them quickly anywhere, and if you want to change a color everywhere on the page, you just edit that global color and it's going to do exactly that. So now we have this. It's kind of messy, so let's go ahead and add in our second column. So on our second column, we need to split it up into 3 chunks, 3 images with a button. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add in an intersection. Like I said before, an intersection basically allows you to split up one column into multiple columns. So now you can tell we put in this intersection, and we have 2 columns over here, and they're both empty. So we need 2 of these, because we need the upper one and the bottom one. So let's go ahead and duplicate that. Just right click this and press duplicate. You can also do this through the navigator, duplicate. Now, our first column should be just 1 column. It's just 1 image and 1 button. So let's go ahead and delete the second one. Just right click over here or over here and delete one of them. It doesn't matter which. Now this is a layout we're going to be using. So the first thing we're going to do is let's add in the button. So just on your elements, search for the widget called button. Just add that in, and you can tell we have a button here. It's left aligned. It takes on the default accent color, and this is the default text. So the text we want is shop plants. So I'm gonna put that in. At the link, we don't really need a link, because if this were a live site, we would add in a category link here, but I'm gonna just add in the site link so it actually works as a link. You don't need to do that if you don't want to. I'm just gonna do it anyway. So the first thing we probably want to do is style this button a little bit. So let's go ahead and over to style, and at the color, let's change the text color first, and we're gonna make the color primary. So you can tell it's this dark color now. And we want to make it a little bit bigger. So let's go under typography and press this pen thingy and make it bigger. Let's just go ahead and make it 1.25 rem. And we want to change the weight. We want to make it bolder. So let's go ahead and make that bold. You can also do this by just going up in the numbers, but we're just going to set bold, which is 700. We're going to skip the line height because we don't need it right now. And the color is fine, but when we hover over it, nothing happens. So hover means that your mouse goes over it. And when we do that right now, nothing happens. So let's go ahead and add in the text color for the hover. Let's make it white. And let's make the button color, so the color, dark. So this happens. So now you can tell it's kind of rounded. I don't know if you can see it, but the corners are rounded. Again, Elementor does this by default for buttons. The way we change that is by just going into style and at the border radius, just unlink everything. And it's going to make the corners sharp. Now we want to edit the padding a little bit because I think this button is a little squished together. We want to add it a little bit more space. So let's go ahead and add in some padding. 40 for left, 40 for right, 20 at the top, 15 at the top, and 15 at the bottom seems about right. Now you can tell we have two spacings here, right? We have two spacings, and this is what we want, but not, we want it to be margins, not paddings. So now you can tell we have a button, but we don't have an image. So let's go ahead and click this column, or you can access it over here, and go over to style. Now we're going to set our background type to an image, to classic first off, and then we're going to choose an image. Go ahead and press upload files, select files, and we're going to go ahead and put in this one, main plant optimized. So these images are not actually optimized. They're still bigger than ideally you would want them to be, but they are just fine for right now. So now we have to set the image to be the way we want it to be. So first off, we're going to set the position to center. This is going to center it vertically and horizontally. We're going to leave attachment as default. We're going to put repeat on no repeat. That means the image is not going to repeat once it's too small to fill up the space. It's not going to duplicate. And we're going to set the size to cover. The reason the image is not as big as we want it to be is because when you set an image as a background for a section or a column, what's going to happen is the image is going to be as big as that column's content is, which means we got to make the content bigger. Which means we got to add in some padding to the button. We're just going to go ahead to the button and go under advanced. And now we're going to add in some padding. Now we're going to add in padding by percentages, not by pixels. It's more responsive. And in our case, it's the better option. So let's set our padding over here to 3% on the left, 3% on the bottom, and 30% on the top. And we get something that is actually kind of similar to what we need, except we have this padding over here on our column. So let's go ahead and edit column and unlink that. And we're going to do it again with the biggest column. So the second column in our section, just go ahead and unlink that. Now what happens is we lose this line in the middle, but we're going to fix that with margins. So now we have our first column and it's looking pretty good. It's looking pretty much the way we want it to. Let's go ahead and add in our second and third one. So in the bottom intersection, we're going to do the same thing. We can just go ahead and copy and paste in the button. So just press that button or go ahead and go over here and duplicate it and just drag it in where you want it to be. Now, first off, let's go ahead and get rid of this padding again. And you can tell over here, the padding is not equal. So we're going to go ahead and fix that by going to edit button, advanced, and set this to 6% on the left, 6% on the bottom, and 50% on the top. This is looking pretty much the way we want it to. Now let's go ahead and add in the image. Go ahead and go over to style, background type, classic, upload a file. And we have to do this regarding the shears, yeah. Now the image is again huge. So go ahead and position center, repeat, no repeat, and size cover. Now the other thing we have to do is change the text on the button. So go ahead and go into the button, content, and change the text from plans to accessories. So now we just need to do the same with the third category, so soil. Now we can go ahead and repeat this process, or we can just delete this column, the second column over here in the intersection, just delete that. And now just duplicate this one. And you're left with two identical columns. And we're just going to change the content now. So just go ahead and change the image. Insert media and change the text. So shop accessories, shop soil. And now we have our section is looking pretty good. First off, you're going to probably notice this on the left side on our first column. It should be center aligned. Now, the way we're going to do that is by going into the column settings and going to layout and setting the vertical align to middle. This is going to align all of the content to the middle. You can do bottom, top, but we're going to set it to middle. Now we have to set in some paddings over here because otherwise it goes directly to the edge. And you can preview your site by hiding this panel, and you're going to see what happens, how it actually looks like. So just go ahead and let's do that, and you can tell we need to add in padding here. So let's go ahead and under column, go under advanced, and we're going to add in some padding here. Let's just go ahead and add in 250 pixels for the left side. That looks pretty good. Maybe make it 300. That looks just about how I want it to look. Now we're going to notice what happens over here is we get these gaps. We don't want these gaps. We want it to be full width. And that happens because we did not set our intersections to full width. They are still boxed. So if you set it to full width, you can tell it works the way it's supposed to. So go ahead and put both of the intersections of the right column to full width. Now we have our full width columns. The next thing we have to do is add in the spacing. We're going to do this with a margin. So just go ahead and go on over to our left column, go under advanced and add in a 10 pixel margin on the right. And we're going to do this for all of these columns. We're just going to change up the values. On this one, on the second column, we're going to do this with the left side and add in a 10 pixel margin. And all we have to do now is just go ahead and go into this second intersection and add in a 20 pixel margin at the top. And let's update this and take a look at how it looks by going to preview. Now what's missing is once we hover over this, I want this to be clickable all the way through. Now Elementor doesn't really offer a simple solution to this, but it's going to be really easy to do with just a little bit of CSS. So let's go ahead and do this. First off, we're going to go over to our column and we're going to go over to style. And we're going to go ahead and add in a background overlay. And we're going to go over to hover. So when somebody hovers over it, there's going to be a background overlay happening. You're going to see what that means in a second. First off, let's go ahead and type and use classic and set it to the accent color. And this looks pretty good. Maybe you can play around with the opacity here, with the transition duration. But I'm going to set it to 0.75 or 0.5. Make the transition duration 0. Actually, let's just leave it as is. Now we have this. So we have to do this. So let's do this with all of the columns. Background overlay, hover, background type, accent, 0.5. So let's go ahead and do this at the last column. And we have this hover effect. Now this still doesn't make it clickable, but we're going to get that in a second. I noticed I forgot to add in a margin between these two. So the way I'm going to do that to keep them both the same size is I'm going to add in a margin to the right side of the left one of 10 pixels and a margin to the left side of the right one again of 10 pixels. So they stay the same size. So we have our section laid out. Let's just work on making it clickable now. Now the first thing we're going to do is we have our CSS right over here. And you can tell it targets a class called clickable. So we have to add in a class called clickable to this column. So let's go ahead and over to our column, go under advanced, and at CSS classes, just type in clickable without any dots, just clickable. And we're going to do the same for the second and the third column within those intersections. So let's go ahead and do that. Clickable. Now this doesn't do anything because we haven't added in any CSS yet. So we're going to go ahead and go over to our preview or our live site, whatever you want to do, and go over to customize. Now we're going to add in this CSS. It's really simple. Just copy and paste everything here. Go ahead and go over to additional CSS and paste it in. Now publish it. Exit. And now you can tell it's clickable. You can tell because the mouse changes. But if you click it, it actually works now. So the whole column now is clickable. So we're pretty much done with our first column. The only thing we have to do now is make it responsive. The way you make things responsive in Elementor is by going over here, going to responsive mode. And you're going to see 3 devices. Desktop, which is the one we're on right now, tablet, and mobile. Let's go ahead and first off make it look good on tablet. Now you can tell this is very messed up. But we're gonna first off, let's fix the left column. Let's go ahead into adding column and under advanced, unlink this. So it's gonna remove all of the settings regarding paddings that were applied to the desktop version. But it's not gonna impact the desktop one. It just impacts the tablet. So first off, I really like adding in 30 padding on the left and on the right of my tablets. I think 30 is about perfect. So let's go ahead and do that. 30, 30. Now this is way too huge. So let's go ahead and edit the heading. Press edit heading or access it here. Go over to style typography and change the size. I'm going to make it 3 rem. And this, I made too little on the desktop. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to desktop, make it a little bit bigger, make it 1.25 rem. And I want it to be a little bit bolder. So I'm going to put the weight at 600. Now this looks pretty much great. This looks amazing. So let's go ahead and go over back to our tablet and change the size back down to 1 rem, and let's keep the weight. Now on the right side, this first column is looking pretty okay, but the second ones are all squished up. So we're gonna have to fix those. So go ahead and go over into the second column, in the intersection, access the column settings. Now we're gonna go under layout and make the column width 100%. And we're going to do the same thing with the second one. Now the only issues we're left with is this one is smaller and the margins are not okay. So first off, let's fix this easier thing. Let's go under margins again in the column, unlink this, and make it 20 on the bottom. And on this one, do the same thing without adding in 20 at the bottom. So now the margins are okay. So why this happens is the percentages of the padding on these buttons are larger than the ones on this one. So we're going to go ahead and just unlink the ones on the top and make them the same. So 6% at the on left, 6% on the bottom, and 50% at the top. And you can tell we now have 3 categories and they all look the same. Now we may want to edit the image a little bit, make it a little bit bigger here. So we're going to go ahead and go into the small column settings, go under style and add image, make the size custom. And now let's go over to percentages and make it 100%. And that's not enough. Make it 150% is going to be about 180%. I think looks good in this case. And I'm just going to keep these 2 as is. Let's go over to our desktop. And I'm pretty happy with these. Now we have our first section done for desktop and for tablet. Let's just go ahead and update it. And we're going to head on over to mobile now. Now on mobile, things get a little bit different. You can tell mobile is obviously very limited in terms of how wide it can be. So the first thing I want from a user experience perspective is to show the user the categories as soon as possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the max, to the largest element, so the section, go over to advanced, go over to responsive, and we're going to press this, reverse columns on mobile. This is going to reverse the columns and make this column that is actually on the left, so it's on the top on mobile, it's going to put it at the bottom. So this is looking better already. So the only things we have to fix are some sizing and padding and margin issues. So let's go ahead and go over to our second largest column, and we're gonna just get rid of this margin, just unlink. And now you can tell it looks the way it should. The only thing we have to fix is this one. So let's go ahead and go over to our first column, add in a margin of 20 to the top, and add in some padding. Let's add in, I like to do 20 on the left, 20 on the right for mobile. So I'm gonna add in 20 on the left, 20 on the right, and in this case I'm gonna add in 20 at the top and 20 at the bottom so it's not bleeding into the actual edge. I wanna make the heading a little bit smaller, so I'm gonna go ahead and make it 2 rem, and I'm pretty happy with this. So let's check out how this actually looks. Now we're on the front end and this is the way it looks. Now we have an issue here. We're gonna fix it really easily. If you're using Mozilla, just go ahead and press inspect. This works with any browser, but on Mozilla I find their inspect tool the best. So go ahead and press inspect, right click, inspect. And then over here, you're just gonna press this tablet and mobile. And now you can drag in and drag out the way it's gonna look on different screen resolutions. We can tell we have quite an issue here. And that is because I added in the paddings by pixels. So we're gonna go ahead and add in a padding in percentages. Let's do 15 on the left and 15 on the right. And that is gonna fix that issue really quick. Update it, and let's check out how it looks. And this looks perfect. Now you can tell it's nice, it's responsive. And we are done with our first section, and this was pretty much the hardest section of the whole tutorial. So if you manage to build this, the rest of the tutorial should be easy for you. So let's head on over to the second one. So next up, we have this section. And we have to add in some space between them so it's not all cramped up. You know, a very good rule in design is give it more space. More white space. The more white space you can get away with, probably the better, because elements need to breathe, because if it's all cramped up, it never looks good. So go ahead and add in another section. In the navigator, we can just click this so we can close all of this. Also, let's name this. Double click on this and just make it hero section. And just, you know, name it whatever you want to. You don't have to do this, but if you work with a lot of sections, it can get really confusing really fast. So naming them is a good practice. So we're gonna be adding in a new one. We just want to add in a spacer, which is a widget that does exactly what it sounds like. It just adds space. So just go ahead and make it 1 column and press plus, add in a widget, spacer, and we're gonna make it 250 pixels. 150 pixels. And you can tell it's not actually 150 pixels because it has that padding. So it's actually 170 pixels in total, but I'm fine with that for now. So I'm just gonna keep it as is. So this section, we can break it down into 2 columns again. First column is here. In the first column are the images and the second column is the text and the button. So let's go ahead and do that. So just add in another section with 2 columns. We're not gonna make this one full width. We want it to be boxed. We're gonna see exactly how boxed later on, but we want it to be boxed. First off, let's add the background color. So let's go ahead and go over to edit section and go under style. And in the background type, choose the color we set, background 1. Let's just update this. And now on the left side, we're gonna add in an intersection again. Add in an intersection. So delete the second column. We don't need 2 columns. We just need 1. So delete the second one and add in an image widget. Now we're gonna go ahead and choose an image, upload files, and you're gonna see there's a WebP in here. WebP is a great format. It's smaller, it's better for the web, so we're gonna be using this in this case. Let's just add in this bottle optimized WebP. Now it's kind of huge, but the issue we're gonna have is with quality. I don't think you're gonna notice it in this case, but usually when you upload things to Elementor, you want to set the image size to full. This is gonna preserve the quality, but it means you have to resize the image in whatever image editing software you're using. at least approximately. Don't upload images that are huge. It's gonna slow down your website. And don't upscale images because it's gonna ruin the quality. So we're just gonna set it to full, and it's kind of huge. So I'm gonna go over to style, and at the width, I'm gonna set it to, not 50, it's too little, 60%. Let's keep it at 60% for now. So I need to do this twice. So first off, you can tell these two come together. So I do not want the padding. I don't want the space at the bottom. So I'm gonna go ahead and unlink that in the column. And I'm just gonna duplicate this intersection. Once we duplicate this, just go ahead and change the image and upload files, select files, and get the box. Okay, so this is looking fairly good. Now the issue obviously is these two are not touching, and we're actually gonna make the bottle fall into the box. But first off, let's go ahead and do this second section with just text and a button. So we're gonna add in another intersection, and you can tell the whole section is as big as these two images, and we want on the second column, so on the biggest column, we want the vertical line to be middle. We want the content to be aligned to the middle. So let's go ahead and lay out vertical line middle. Now we want a heading, and we don't want two columns, so go ahead and delete one. And for the heading, we're just gonna copy and paste this in. So just copy this one and paste it right in here. Adjust the size because this is way too big. Make it 3 rem. And now we're just gonna be adding in a text editor widget. So go ahead and find the text editor widget and drag it in here. Now we're gonna change the text. We're gonna copy and paste this in. And once you copy and paste that in, you're gonna notice what happens if you go from content visual to text. A lot of these tags happen, and we don't want that. So the way we're gonna do that is, instead of just dropping it into the visual editor, we're gonna go over to the text, just delete this and paste it in again, and now it's clear. Now the issue we have is we want a space over here, our propagation promoters. So go ahead and go back to the visual where you want to add another line. Just go ahead and press Shift Enter. And this looks pretty good. The issue we have is, you can tell at the bottom, we get this spacing. This is not a spacing we want. This is a bug that Elementor has that they still have not fixed for whatever reason, but it's really simple to get rid of. Just go over to your text, delete any character at all, just delete it and retype it. But now our spacing disappears. Again, very annoying bug. So let's just fix this by adding in a BR tag. Just add in 2 of these. This is an HTML tag that creates a break. And that is how you get rid of both of those issues. Now we have to add in a list, and you can tell we have some icons here. It's a circle, but it's an icon. So let's go ahead and go back over here and search for icon list. And just drag and drop that in there. Now we have an icon list, so let's go ahead and edit it. First off, let's delete the second and the third one, because it's gonna make it easier for us. And open up this one. At the icon, go ahead and just press it. And in the icon library, search for circle. Insert that. And we have to add in the text. And the text is contain high quality rooting hormone. Copy and paste that in. And now we're just going to style this. We're going to align it to the left as is. Under icon, we're going to make the size 10. Looks good. Or 12 maybe. And under text, we're going to change the text color from secondary to primary. And we're going to make it bold. We're going to go ahead and make that bold. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So the next thing we have to do is duplicate this by pressing these 2 little pages. Just duplicate it twice. And we're not really happy with the spacing, so go ahead and go over under style and add in some space between. I'm gonna put in 15, looks good. 15, 10, perhaps, yeah. So back under content, we're just gonna change the text over here. So helps with moisture retention. And protect plants from bacteria and fungus. There we go. So the next thing we have to do is add in another text editor, or we can just duplicate this one and drag it below the icon list and just add in this text. Never before has been easier or more convenient. There we go. And now we need a button. Update it real quick and just, copy and paste in the button from before. Copy and paste that in here. We're gonna change up the padding. Obviously, go over to edit button, advanced, and change the padding to whatever you want, but definitely not this. I'm gonna put it in pixels now because I want it to be a fixed value. I don't want it to scale up and down. I just want it to look exactly the same on all desktop devices. So I'm just gonna put in a pixel value. Just because the spacing here is a little bit large, I'm gonna add in a 10. That is pretty much this done. We just need to add in this comes in completely recyclable packaging. We're gonna do that by adding in another section with 2 columns. So we can align it perfectly to this one. Go ahead and edit section, add in the background color, primary. And then we're just gonna copy and paste in this icon list. Delete 2 of them. Copy the text. Fix it up because I did not copy that well. And let's just change the icon color to white and the text color to white. So let's just go ahead and go under column and vertical align middle again. And I forgot to change the text here of the button, just shop now. And that's it for this side of the section. Now we have to do these images. Now this is going to be a little bit more fun. So let's go ahead and start with the top image. First off, we want it to bleed, or rather go up out of the section a little bit. So we're going to go under advanced and add in a negative margin at the top. So let's make it minus 150. That's too much. So let's make it minus 100. So now we have to do the same for the box image. Add in a margin at the top of minus 30. And add in a margin at the bottom of, again, minus 150. And that's a little bit too much, but we're going to have to edit it later, so it doesn't matter. Now you're going to notice this second section, this comes in completely recyclable packaging, goes over the image. And we don't want that. We want the exact opposite. We're going to use z-index to fix this. Z-index basically works like layers in Photoshop or Illustrator. The higher the index, the higher up the element is. So if we leave this and don't add a z-index, but we do add a z-index to the image, it goes on top of it. Let's add in a z-index of 2 to the image. And let's add in a z-index of 1 to the upper image so that it's on top of everything else, but it is still below the box image. So now this image is going to be on top of everything except this. This has a higher z-index and it's always going to be on top of it. Now all we have to do is make it drop into the box. We're going to do this by using motion effect. So go ahead and go over to edit image, advanced motion effect. We're going to set scrolling effects to on, and we're going to use vertical scroll for this. I want it to go in the bottom direction when I scroll down, so I want it to drop like this. You're going to have to play around with the speed and the viewport here. So the viewport is the user's visible area of a web page, and it varies in size by device. Now that sounds kind of confusing, and it kind of is. So if you want to know more about this, just go ahead and Google it. It's just type in Elementor viewport. But the bottom line is the best way to get the result you want is to just play around with it and see what it does and see exactly how it works. So I already know what I have to do pretty much. So I'm going to set the speed to 9. So it's a little bit faster now. And I'm going to set the viewport from 44% to 59%. So just drag that. I like the speed and I like when it starts to move and I like when it stops to move. So now I have to do the same for the second image. Go ahead and go over advanced, motion effect, scrolling effects on,
vertical scroll. Direction, this time I'm going to leave it as up because I want it to come up, not down. Speed 9. And now I just have to change in the viewport. I'm going to do this one about 31% to 55%. So now we're left with something like this, but it's not ideal, so we're going to go ahead and fix it. First off, let's make the whole section a little bit bigger. Head on over into the section settings, go under layout, and at content width, let's type in 1:250. That makes everything a little bit bigger, and I think it looks better. Now, I think this is a little bit too big, so let's go ahead and edit the style, make it 55%. And that is instantly better. Now, our biggest issue is this gap over here. So we're going to fix that with negative margins. So go ahead and go into the image editor and go under advanced, and let's set the negative margin to 300. Now that looks better, but everything looks a little bit squished up. So again, let's go into the section settings, advanced, and let's add in some padding at the bottom and at the top. I'm going to go with 60 for now. So that's looking pretty good, but I'm still going to go ahead and add in a little bit more of a negative margin, 350. And with it, I'm going to add in a little bit more of a padding. So I'm going to go with 90, top and bottom. And I'm pretty much liking the way this looks. I want to make this spacing as close as this one as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and edit the margin just a little bit again. So basically just play around with it until you get something you're satisfied with. Then let's head on over and make this responsive. Let's go over to our tablet view. And you can tell the pictures are really messed up. But first off, let's fix the padding here. We're going to add in a padding in the column. I like adding 30 on each side for tablet, but in this case we only need it on the right because we already have a spacing here. So let's go ahead and add in a 30 padding on the right. And that's pretty much all we need. We don't need to add in more at the top or at the bottom. Now we have to fix these images. First off, let's target the second one, and you can tell it's kind of difficult to press it here. So I'm going to go ahead and access it through the navigator and just click that and just unlink everything. Just unlink the margin. And now you can tell this is kind of tiny. So we're going to go ahead and go over to style and set the width to whatever looks good, but I think 70 is about right in this case. And let's do the same with the upper image. And this is looking pretty good. Go ahead and make it bigger. 75 should be just about right. Now the size is fine, but we're still getting this motion effect. And we really want to get rid of it on tablet and on mobile because I don't think it's going to look the way it should in any case. Especially in mobile and tablet, you know, motion effects can be really disruptive. So we're going to go ahead and turn that off. So let's go under our images, whichever image we have to do the same thing to both of them. Go under advanced, and if you turn off scrolling effects, it's going to turn them off for the desktop as well. So what you do is go here, apply effects on, and just press the little X next to the tablet and mobile. And now you turned off the motion effect, and do the same for the second image. And boom, now we just have to edit in the paddings and margins so we don't get this gap. We're going to do that, but we're just going to add a little bit of a negative margin to the bottom one. And this is looking pretty good. Let's just go ahead and make the section padding a little bit smaller because I don't think it needs to be quite that big. And now we should probably fix this up. We have a 10 padding over here and a 30 padding over here. So just go ahead and add in a padding at the right side of 30, and it's going to squish it up. So we have to add in some bottom and some top padding as well. And that is looking great. Now let's go ahead and do the same for mobile. Now on mobile, we can tell this column needs some padding. So we're going to go ahead and go into the column settings, advanced, and unlink the padding and make it 20 on the left, 20 on the right. This spacing could be a little bit bigger, so I'm going to add 20 at the top. And I'm going to add 20 at the bottom because I want some padding over here. And that's looking great. So we're going to do the same for this section column. We have 10, 30, 10, so we're just going to unlink that. So after you unlink that, just add in any padding that seems good to you. I'm going to go with 20, 20, 10 at the top and 10 at the bottom. So now that we have the padding down, I'm going to go over into the section settings, go under advanced, responsive, and reverse the columns. So this one's on top, and for this one, I'm just going to go ahead and go into its settings, go to responsive, and hide it on mobile. And the images are maybe a little bit too big. So I'm going to go ahead and make them a little bit smaller. They don't need to be that huge for mobile. You can tell the spacer is a little bit huge as well. So let's go ahead and add in a 50 for the spacer instead of 150. And let's make it 80 on the tablet. You can also add a negative margin over here. Do the same thing here where it just goes up a little bit. If you want, just play around with it if you want to. I'm just going to leave it as is for now. Let's go ahead and update it and check out what happens. Now, obviously, we can scroll further down so we can really see exactly what's going to happen. So if anything breaks, we're going to just go ahead and fix it. No big deal. But otherwise, so far, so good. So let's go ahead onto the next section. We're going to copy the spacer again. And I just copy the spacers just so I get an even spacing everywhere. You're going to have to edit paddings and margins to get really even spacings, and that's why we have this ruler as well. But just keeping the spacers the same height is a good practice. So the next thing we have to do is this review section. This is going to be really simple. So we need a section with 1, 2, 3 columns. This is going to be its own individual section. And these icons are also going to be their own individual sections. So let's go ahead and start with the simplest thing. Let's add in the heading. Oh, I forgot to change the text here. The evolution of evolution. And now I'm going to copy and paste this into a new section. We just need one column, and there we go. And we want this to be center aligned. So just center align that, and just go ahead and copy the text. And there we go. So now we're going to go ahead and make these. So we need a section with 3 columns. And into the first column, we're going to start by adding in an intersection. And the reason we're going to do that, I'm going to show you in a second why we're using intersections here, where we could easily build it without intersections, but I'll show you the difference. Now, first off, we have a text editor. So go ahead, we don't need 2 columns, so go ahead and delete the second one again. And we're going to put in a text editor. Let's just go do that. First off, just copy this, go under text, because it's going to be cleaner. Miss the I, and now just fix this. This happens sometimes. And I'm just going to fix the spacings. And now I just got rid of the useless breaks. And we're ready to go. So the next thing we need is an image. So go ahead and put in an image. Now, like I said before, you really want your images to be on full. And go ahead and we're going to go upload files, select files. And we're going to go under review photos and we're going to get this guy. You know, it's always so nice to see a smiling customer. So now we have this square image. It's way too huge and it's the wrong shape. But we're going to make it, so we're going to fix that by going to style and set the width to 25. I think 30 is going to work. And then go ahead and go over to the border radius and just add in a huge border radius, like 100, 150, whatever. Doesn't really matter. And that's going to round out the edges. Now I can tell the image is a little bit large, so I'm going to go ahead and make it 20%. We're missing the name. So go ahead and I'm going to use a heading. This is one of those cases where using the Elementor's global fonts would be useful, but I don't really mind doing it this way. So I'm going to go ahead and make that 1 rem, make it bold, and I'm going to go ahead and make this text editor have a width of 500. And now all that's missing is the background. So how we do that is we go over to our intersection, go under style, and add in the background type. Now why we're doing this like this instead of doing it on the column, I'm going to show in a second. But first, let's fix some of these spacings and paddings and margins. First off, let's go into the main column and just unlink the padding. Then go over into your intersection and add in some padding here. I want 30 everywhere because I want this thicker border, I guess. And go in the column in the intersection and unlink them there. Make this name move up a little bit. And there we go. Now, first off, let's copy this column. Let's duplicate it. And I'm going to show you why we used an intersection. So let's go back. Let's go in the second column. Let's go into the intersection. Go under Style and clear this. Now, if you just make the whole column have a background, right? It's still the same right now, but watch what happens if I add in more text, right? And if I do the same thing and I duplicate it again and delete some text here, I have two columns that are the exact same height, even though they have very different content heights. So that's why we're using an intersection, because that way it only applies to the actual content inside that intersection, not inside the whole column. So let's go ahead and delete both of these columns. Just delete them and then just duplicate this one. And you can tell we need some spacing over here. So since we're sticking to 20 everywhere, so let's go ahead and add in a 10 margin on the left and on the right to both of them. Left, right, and just duplicate this one again. And now we have something that is looking pretty much the way it should. We just have to edit out the content. So now we have this guy. He likes gardening a lot, you know. He deals with large pests and he needs some sharp blades. So we're just gonna go paste that in. And again, I get this, and I'm just gonna really quickly do that. There we go. Now we just change the image and change the name. And we're going to do the same thing on the third review. And I just want to point out how we made three very different looking sections, very different functions as well. But we're just repeating the same techniques over and over, and that's really what it comes down to. You just got to master these basics. Now you can tell this breaks. That is because the viewport before was much smaller than it is now. So it actually stopped over here. Now you can actually see this is not looking as great. We're going to fix that later. But that is because the viewport before stopped over here, right? The viewport stopped over here. Now it stops way over here. And after this, it's going to be the same no matter what we add. It's just that 100% viewport over here just stops here. And when we add in some content, it's not going to matter anymore. Now we just have to fix the spacings and add in the icons. First off, let's go ahead and add in a padding to this. Just add in a 30 padding at the bottom. Now, the way we're going to add in icons, there's a lot of ways you can do this, but the easiest, I think, is the way we're going to do it right now. First off, let's go ahead and make a new section. So you can add a section in between different sections by just going over here and clicking this plus. And it adds a section on top of it. So we're going to do that over here. If I click this, it's going to add the intersection. So it's going to go to the left a little bit and add in a section. So what we're going to do now is just add in an icon widget. And we have our icon. Now let's go ahead and upload an SVG. And it's this quotation marks, SVG, insert media. Now when it comes to icons in Elementor, if you make an icon in a program such as Illustrator, and if you export it as an SVG, which is what you're going to need to do if you want to change the color of the icon, make sure the color is pure black. Make sure the color is 6 zeros. So hashtag 0000000. Any other color is not going to work. You're not going to be able to change the colors unless it's a pure black. So let's go ahead and go over to style first and make the primary color our accent color, just like here. And now it's really just a matter of editing in the margins. So let's also align it to the left, and let's go ahead and unlink the padding on the column. Now it's just a matter of getting the margins right. So we're going to add in a negative margin at the bottom, which is really going to just push everything below this up. And there we go. Like 30 looks good, but again, we have to deal with the Z index. So go ahead and add in a Z index of 1 is going to be enough. And now just align it however you like. I'm just going to add in some padding on the right. Actually, that's not going to work. We have to add in a negative margin on the left to get this. And I think you're already getting the difference between a margin and a padding. You can tell right over here. You can tell how wide the section is. And you can tell that when we add in a negative margin, the element, the icon, goes outside of those containers. So we have to just do the same thing on the bottom. So just go ahead and duplicate this, or rather I'm going to copy and paste it. So I'm going to go over to, so first off, I'm going to close some of this because it's a little bit distracting. So now we're going to go over to our lowest section and just go over here in the navigator and select paste. Now we get this same icon, same section, and we're just going to align it to the right. And again, all you have to do is edit the margins. So first off, I don't want a negative margin on the left and I don't want a negative margin on the bottom, but I do want a negative margin on the top because I have to move it to the top. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a negative margin, and that is looking great. So now I just need a negative margin on the right so I can push it to the right a little bit. And that is pretty much it. This section is done. We just have to make it responsive. The way we're going to do that, we're faced with a new challenge here. We can leave 3 columns. It's not too horrible, but it is pretty horrible. So what we want in this case is 1 column over here, 1 over here, and 1 at the bottom. Now the best way to achieve this is again by just editing in the column layout width. First off, I'm going to name this the reviews section, the reviews, so I know exactly what I'm dealing with. And let's go over to our left column and go ahead and go to layout and make the column width 50%. Do the same with the second one. We just have to edit in the margins and the paddings. So let's go ahead and unlink the margin and the padding. Let's add a 30 padding on the left, same as before. And let's add a 15 padding on the right. And let's do the same thing for this one, except we're going to make the padding on the right 30 and on the left 15. And we have a pretty cool section over here. And now we just have to fix this. The way we fix this is we're going to go ahead and make this column 100%. Now it's way too huge, obviously. But what we're going to do is go over under advanced and unlink the padding and go over to percentages. And now we're just going to add in a 25% on the left and a 25% on the right. And you can tell these columns are now the same width. Well, not exactly, because we need to add in the margin or padding. In this case, we can't add in the padding, so we're going to do it with a margin, but you get the point. So we're just going to go ahead and add in a 30 on the left and a 30 on the right. Go ahead and measure this out. And it's not quite well. So now I'm just gonna, with the margin and with the ruler tool, just find exactly how wide this is supposed to be. In this case, it's 330. And so this one's supposed to be 330 as well. And I'm pretty sure 22.5, 22.5 on each side. And there we go, 330. Now just add in a margin at the top. And boom, we just made this section fully responsive without having to hide anything. Now, all that's left is to edit in this icon. So go ahead and edit the icon and unlink the margins again. And I'm just going to leave it like this, I think. I'm going to add in a negative 20 at the top. And then I'm going to do the same for this one because I think it doesn't need to be quite as heavy. I'm going to do a negative 20 at the bottom. And that should be about right. It's not going to look quite as perfect as on desktop, but that's just how it works. If we had 4 columns, there would be no issues. So let's go ahead and do the same for mobile. First off, the paddings and margins are all off. So let's go into the column settings, unlink these, and make them 20, 20. And 20 at the bottom as well. Do the same for the second one. And for the third one, we had this issue because we just made this column have a 25% padding on each side. So we'll just unlink that. And you don't even need to use percentages in this case. Just go ahead and unlink everything. Go ahead and add in 20 pixels to the right and to the left. If you want to, you can play around with how the icon's positioned, but I like this. So this section is also done. So now we're left with actually just 3 more sections. Now this one's going to be really easy. So first off, again, we're going to duplicate the spacer. You can also just go ahead and copy this and paste it exactly right in here. So paste that in. And again, we need the heading. So we're going to go ahead and make a whole nother section for the text editor. And copy and paste in the text. And the reason I made a new section is so I can control the width better. I could also do this with an intersection. But I'm going to go ahead and style this, make the font 1.2 rem and make it 500, I think yeah. I'm just going to go ahead and go into the section, edit section, and at box, add in a 700, maybe 600. So I'm just going to go ahead and change in this text. The padding we put in here is a little bit big, so we're just going to go ahead and get rid of that. Maybe add in a 10 at the bottom, and that's it. Now we're going to go ahead and add in our icons. So let's make a new section with 4 columns, and we're going to put in an icon widget. And once you put in your icon, just go ahead and upload SVG. I already uploaded. We would add in a link over here if we had an actual link. Go to Style. We're going to set the size to 80, and we want it to be in a circle, right? We want it to be in a circle. So we're going to go under Content and make the view stacked. Let's say we want to edit how large the circle is. So that you do that by editing the padding. I'm going to set it to 40. I want my primary color to be this one. I want my secondary color to be white, and on hover, I want my primary color to be this one, and my secondary color as this one. So the way this looks is right like this. You can also add in hover animations over here if you want to. I usually don't use them. And the next thing we have to do is add in a heading or a text editor, whichever you prefer. Change the text. A little light, center align that. Change the size. I'm going to put it to 1.25 rem. And add in a negative margin at the top so the spacing is a little smaller. And I'm happy with that. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and duplicate this and delete this and just go ahead and replace the icon. Go ahead and upload my SVG. The next one's going to be highlight, so the sun. And you can tell with the same settings applied, the sun looks much bigger. And I want to make that smaller. I want it to be a little bit more balanced. So I'm going to go ahead and edit the size and make it 70. But when that happens, if I use a ruler, you're going to see they're not the same size anymore. The whole circle is not the same size. So I'm going to go ahead and add in the padding, make it a little bit bigger, 45. And that is absolutely perfect. Then just change the text to highlight. And let's check how this looks on tablet. It looks fine. And mobile, no issues. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for the other 2 icons. Upload files, choose your SVG. Now we have a skull, hard to kill. And again, we want to change the size a little bit. I'm going to set it to 60, but then I need to increase the padding, so I'm going to make the padding 50. And again, just check it out with the ruler if it works. And change the text. And just repeat that again. Add in the hedgehog. Change the size. Because you can tell this one's really tiny, for example. Way smaller than this. So I'm going to go ahead and change the size. and change the padding to 40, and that is the way it should be. Now you can tell the space between these is just huge. So the first thing we're going to do is unlink the padding. Unlink the padding on all 4 of them. You can also do this by just going ahead and clicking the one you already edited. Go to the column, right click, copy, and on the one you want to paste it, the style to, just go ahead, right click and paste style. And it's going to remove the padding. It's going to copy the style of the column. So we need a little bit more padding on the top. We'll just go ahead and add in some padding at the top. And now our biggest issue is we still have these spaces. So we're going to fix that by making the section width smaller. So go ahead to section, edit section, layout, boxed, and put it to whatever you think looks best. So now let's go check how this works on the tablet. Now again, I want to change the tablet padding. I just fixed it over here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on the title. Let me make it left 30, right 30. This one doesn't really need that because it's already limited, so that's not going to be an issue. But here you have a little bit of a space, even though there's no padding. We're just going to improvise over here because I think there's no need to complicate things. But then what happens is these spaces are too little. So this is a balancing game, really what you want to do. But I don't think in this case we really have to worry about them. So I'm just going to delete these paddings and keep the one on the top at 20. So these spacings are identical. But you can really play around with the size of this to get the perfect spacings everywhere. Now let's go ahead and check it out on mobile. So when I go to our mobile view, first off, let's fix the padding issues. But I'm noticing, and this heading is a little bit too large. But I'm noticing these icons are really huge on mobile. This is going to look pretty large. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make 2 rows. So let's go ahead and do that. Go ahead and go into your first column, column width, layout, column width, and go ahead and put in 50. Do the same for all of them. And we are left with something like this. Now let's go ahead and put in a padding. First off, I'm going to put in a 20 padding on the left, on the right, and on the top. Now these are overlapping. They are just way too big. So go ahead and edit the size here. Make it 60. Just decrease it by 20 everywhere. Instead of 80, we're going to have 60. And this is looking way better. We're still kind of not quite there yet with the paddings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go into the first column and add in a 10 padding on the right. And I'm going to do the same thing on the right one for the left side. I'm just going to copy and paste the styles to the bottom ones. So now these spacings are looking way better, and they are actually 20 pixels pretty much everywhere. Now we just need to add in the space between the actual rows. So between this one and this one. So let's go ahead and go into this column, the third column, or whichever one. You can really go into the first 2 and add in a bottom padding, or you can go into the second 2 and add in a top padding, which is what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna add in a padding of 30 to each of them at the top. So I'm pretty happy with this. The last thing I would do is maybe play around with the sizes a little bit, because this scroll is a little bit tiny. Make it a little bit bigger, make the padding a little bit smaller. But if I do that, then, the padding gets messed up on the desktop view as well. So the way we're going to fix that is by just not messing with this section. If you go to the bottom over here to your history, you can go ahead and just undo all the changes from when you started editing. You just click and it's going to take you to that change. So I want to get rid of this, so I'm going to go back to this one. And now the way we're going to fix this is by duplicating this section. And first off, we're going to go over to advanced and responsive, and I'm going to hide it on desktop and on tablet. And I'm going to do the same for this one, but I'm going to hide it for mobile. So that means it's not going to show up on mobile devices, and this section is not going to show up on desktop or on tablet. You can tell because it's grayed out. So if we go over here, now we can play around with the sizes, make this bigger, make the padding smaller, really just whatever you want to do, this is the place to do it now. Make this bigger, make this smaller, just balance it out until it looks the way it should. Especially this skull was way too small, I think. And this hedgehog, everybody loves them, so let's make it a little bit bigger. So that is it for the icon section. So when it comes to icons, a user experience UX tip I have for you is don't use them unless you need them. Pretty much everything on your website should have a purpose, including icons. I see a lot of beginners just slap in icons because they look cool and because they saw it elsewhere, but the icons make zero sense and they really don't have to be there. Just make sure that when they are there, they are purposeful. And also, I would really encourage you when it comes to icons to just put in that little bit of an extra effort. And I'll admit, it wasn't the easiest thing to find and edit these icons to make sure they all fit the same style, even though the topics they cover are just way different. But it really shows if you put in the effort to make your icons unique, and if you make them fit the brand, it's just really just brings everything up a level. And the same thing here, when it comes to review images, I see a lot of people just slapping on Google stock images. These are from Google as well. I obviously did not take a photo of Peregrine Took, even though I would love to take a photo with him, not of him. Well, both, I guess. But the point is, put in that extra effort. Even if you're working for your own portfolio, put in that extra effort, those 5 minutes, to just cut out the background and make the background a color that's going to fit your brand. And it just looks way cleaner, just looks more connected, and the whole website just flows much better than if I just left the default backgrounds, which were all mixed and really did not fit everything as nicely as this does. So the point is, put in those few minutes of extra effort. It's really going to show, and it's really going to set you apart from the competition. Okay, so enough UX tips. Let's go ahead and keep on building this. We're going to go ahead and paste in another spacer. Of course, go ahead and update this and let's preview it. Let's just see how everything looks so far. And everything is looking great except this, but we already know that. This is looking perfect. This is looking perfect. Working perfect as well. So we're going to go ahead and get into our most annoying section. And I say annoying not because it's very difficult, but because the method I use to make a slider, which is by far the easiest method in Elementor without using JavaScript, for example, is just a lot of guesswork. So I'm going to show you exactly why. But it is the most beginner friendly. So let's go ahead and just get started. Now you could just use basic images or icons. But in this case, I wanted to go that extra mile and make a slider just to challenge myself a little bit. So let's go ahead and first off, we need another heading. You already know what to do. Copy and paste in the heading. Change the text. Trusted by. Social proof is just really important. First off, we're going to add in a section and we're going to put in a image carousel. So go ahead and search for image carousel widget. Now we have our image carousel in and we need to select our images. Now let's go ahead and upload them. Select files, logos for carousel. And you're going to notice every logo is duplicated. That's for a very specific reason. I'll show you why in a second. But for now, just go ahead and upload them. And press create a new gallery. Now we have a gallery over here. Now we just have to reorder the images. I want them to be like this. Just click and drag. So they repeat, right? Bloom, Hobbit Garden, Realeza, Bloom, Hobbit Garden, Realeza. So they just repeat. So we're going to insert that. At image size, I'm going to set it to full, as always. And now we come into the tricky part. Now we have to put the slides to show to 5. Because if we put any less, they are huge. You can tell they are just absolutely huge. And if we go into custom, for some reason, in my case, it just did not work no matter what I did. So that's why I did it this way, and that's why I'm showing you this way. So keep that full and put slides to show at 5. The more slides you show, the smaller they're going to be, obviously. But you cannot show 5 slides if you only have 3 images, which is the reason why we have 6. So on slides to scroll, we're just going to put it to 1. We're going to set image stretch to none, to no, navigation to none, link none, caption none. So now let's go into additional options, and we're going to set our lazy load to yes, our autoplay to yes, our pause on hover to no, our pause on interaction to no, our autoplay speed to 0. Our infinite loop has to be yes. This is important. And we're going to set our animation speed. You can tell it's really fast right now. So we're going to put our animation speed to 3000. That's a nice smooth tempo over here. But you can tell it isn't a slider in the sense that it just continuously slides. It slides, and it stops. It slides, and it stops. So let's go into style. And first off, we're going to add in some spacing. Let's make it custom and make it 100. And you can tell we're getting a pretty good size of this. Now they're all aligned to the top, so a vertical line, I just choose center. And we're gonna leave the border radius as is. Now let's look at what we get. So this is what we get, stops and goes. Now we have to make that just a continuous animation. First off, let's go ahead and go into edit section and add in the gray background. So background type classic, color background 2. And I want to add in some padding as well. 30 at the bottom, 30 at the top, 20 actually, because 30 is too much. And I'm pretty happy with how it looks, but I'm not happy with how it works. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my image carousel, go under advanced, and at CSS classes, add in a class called logo slider. Update this. And then on our preview, we're going to go into customize again. And we're going to copy and paste in the rest of the CSS. Not all of the CSS is for this slider, but we're going to go ahead and paste everything in. Now, this part is for the slider. Now, this part is going to make sure it scrolls nicely instead of stopping and going. And this CSS is going to prevent people from being able to click it. Because if they are able to click it, they are able to interact with it and move it left and right, and then the slider kind of stops and it doesn't work well. And this is going to change the colors of highlighted text, which is going to do this. If we remove that, it looks like this. And you can really just put in any color you want over here in the background. And you can change the color of the text over here in the color. And this is just going to remove a blue highlight that always shows up on mobile phones. On WordPress, when you press a link, this is a very minor detail, but I always add it to my website. Now we have our slider that is scrolling very smoothly, and it's looking great. It's working great. The only thing I'm not quite happy with is if I go over to my ruler and I go and try to measure if this is actually center aligned. I see I have a 47 over here. And I have a 52 over here, so I need to add in some padding. I'm going to add in some padding to this image carousel, add in 7 padding on the top, and this is way more actually centered now. I'm not sure why that offset happens. And we have our image slider. Now the last thing we have to do with this slider is also make it responsive. The issue with the tablet view and the mobile view is, pretty obvious. We can change how many show up. So we're going to, again, set the slides to show up to 5. Because right now it's not actually 5. I think it scales down. So I think it was 2 or 3 by default. So let's go ahead and I think 3 looks great in this case. And on mobile, put in 2. On mobile, we want 2 at the same time. But I really want different spacings over here because they are too large. So I'm going to go ahead and change the spacing to 60 on mobile. So the logos get a little bit bigger and the space gets a little bit smaller. I'm going to put them to 80 on tablet. And I'm going to keep it at 100 on desktop. But with the spacings, you can tell if I change this, it also changes this, and it also changes this. So I don't want to do that. Plus, the speed is perfect for the desktop, but over here, it's a little bit slow. I don't think anybody's going to want to wait 5 seconds for this to, roll through. So I'm going to go ahead and update this first off so I can really see how this looks in actuality. Because right now, the backend of Elementor, we have not refreshed it, which means we're not seeing the CSS we applied. Because on the front end, we're seeing it because we refreshed the page, but on the back end, we're not seeing it. So you refresh by pressing F5 on Windows, and I'm not sure what the command is for Apple, but I'm sure if you're using an Apple, you already know. So So now we can tell how this looks. Let's just go ahead and get into the image carousel. You're going to tell we can't actually click this because we set the pointer click event to 0. So that means in the backend, we actually can't click it ourselves. But the solution to this is simple. Whenever you just cannot click something because of other elements or in very specialized cases like this, just go ahead and access it through your navigator. That's why you have it. Now we're just going to duplicate this and we're going to hide the first one only on mobile. And we're going to hide the second one desktop and on tablet. This is what we're left with. I think this looks good on tablet, but it's too slow for mobile. And this one has spacings that are not really good for mobile. So we're going to change that, go into section. So for the second one, go into section, column, in your navigator, image carousel, and change the spacing. I think 60 is going to work perfectly for this. And under content, we're going to go to additional options and make the animation speed. And we're going to set it to 2000. I think that's great for mobile. It's pretty fast. So this is pretty much the way I want this to look. So we're going to go ahead and move on. We are at our last section. We just have to do this. And I'm pretty sure by this point, you're capable of doing this on your own, but I'm going to still walk you through it. But if you can, try doing it on your own. And then we're just going to do the header and the footer, and we are done. So, okay, first off, again, we need a spacer. Spacer, copy, paste. Just paste that in there. So now we have our spacer, we need our title. So let's go ahead and copy and paste that again. And it's going to say new arrivals. New arrivals. Now, what we want here is this background text / image. You could do this with text, but it's going to require more dealing with margins, paddings, and stuff like that. So I really just usually do details like this with images. With SVGs, logos, and text, it's really important that the quality stays clear. So SVGs are the way to go here. So let's go ahead and go into our section settings, go under style, background type, classic, and let's choose an image and upload files. Select files, and we're going to go under icons and put in 25% off. Insert media, and we get this. Now, you already probably know what we're going to do. Go ahead and go under to position, center, repeat, no repeat. So I'm pretty happy with this, but I want to make it a little bit bigger. But if I change this, it really doesn't work. The problem is the actual section is not large enough because the content is not large enough. So we're going to fix that by going into our section settings, advanced, and adding in some padding at the bottom and at that top. 30-30 I think looks right about where it should be. And now we just need a simple section with 3 columns. We're going to add in 2 headings and a button in the first one. First heading, 25% off. Center align that. Change the size. 2.5 rem, I think, or 3 rem is about right. Change the weight, make it bold. Now we're just going to go ahead and duplicate that, duplicate it. Every new arrival. Just change the size again because it's way too big. 1.5 rem and make it 500. Or rather, keep it as bold. And just add in a negative margin. And now we just have to add in the button. We can also copy this again. Just go ahead and copy the button. Copy, paste over here. We're pasting everything in the same column. You can also do this over here in your navigator. Paste. We just need to add the paddings and alignment. And we are pretty much done with the first column. Just go ahead and add in the background color and some paddings. We're going to keep it at 30 so we can keep it linked. So when they're linked, that means all of them are the same. And if you change one, you're going to change all of them. So let's go ahead and change them to 30. Now I just need to add in a margin on the right and on the left because we're going to need these spacings over here. So go ahead and add in a margin, 10 on the left, 10 on the right. And on the second column, we're going to add in an image. Go ahead and upload the image. product photos, plant 2, insert media. And we're going to unlink the padding. We're going to add in a margin to the column, 10 on the left, 10 on the right, and under image, we're going to set the size and just delete the last column, duplicate this one, duplicate the image column, and just change the image. And that was really quick, and we are pretty much done. The only issue we have is on tablet. We're just going to go ahead and first off, change the margins on all of them, unlink them first. Then we're going to change the heading size, make it 2 rem, and make this 1 rem, 1.25 rem. And I'm pretty happy with the button. I'm going to keep that as is. And the issue we have here is this is definitely not center aligned. So go ahead and go into your column, layout, vertical align, middle. The only thing we have to do now is just add in a padding on the left, or rather, we're not going to add in a padding over here because otherwise these would be all squished up. So we're just going to keep it as is. Just add in a margin to the right of the first section of 5, and over here on the middle one, 5 on the left, 5 on the right. The last one, we're going to set in a margin of 5 on the left. So now you can tell we have an issue here. They are not the same size. And why that is because when we set a margin of 5 to this one, and 5 here, and 5 here, and 5 to this one, the left and the right column have a 5 margin total each, and this one has 10. So it's by default smaller. So the way we fix that is by making the margin on the left one, instead of 5, we're going to put it to 10. So a total of 10, just like here, 5 plus 5 equals 10. And on the right one, we're going to do the same thing. Instead of making it 5 on the left, we're going to make it 10. And now you can tell they are all the same size. And the last thing you have to do is just edit the margins and paddings on mobile. So we're going to go into our first column and add a margin of 20 to the bottom. Go into our second one, add a margin of 20 to the bottom. First unlink them. And the third one, we're just going to unlink. And now we just have to go back and fix this a little bit. We're going to go ahead and go into our second image right over here. And we're going to set the negative margin to a little bit less. So that is looking good. I'm at minus 3110, 3115. And that is looking pretty much perfect. Like, I don't think it's going to get much better. Of course, you can play around with it, but I'm really happy with the way this looks. So let's update the page and let's look at what we've built so far. Let's go ahead and preview. On the preview, I still haven't exited this additional CSS customizer. So let's go ahead and exit that. And now we have our website. It's looking like this. The one thing you could play around with definitely are the spacings. Use the ruler to measure out the spacings between the individual sections and make sure they're all the same. But I'm not going to go into that because that's something you can do yourself, and you should do yourself because it's a very important part of finishing up a website, getting the details just right, fixing up the little things. But the last two things we need to do are our header and our footer. Let's just check how this looks on tablet and on mobile. I'm just going to go right click, inspect, go over here, and just drag this a little bit and just check how everything works on different sizes. So the only thing I'm going to go ahead and change right now is make this padding over here just a little bit bigger because it's kind of bugging me. Feels kind of squished up. So I'm just going to add in some padding at the top and bottom. And maybe I'm going to make this text, instead of making it quite as bold, I'm going to make it 500. So let's go ahead and make our header. First off, we're going to have to access our dashboard. If you've already forgotten how you get there, it's by going to your, for example, you can go by your preview. You can just type in the address and access it through the admin bar over here. Go through dashboard, or just add in WP minus admin to your link. All of these are going to bring you to your dashboard. And once you're here, we're going to make a template. Now, this is for Elementor Pro. If you are using a free version, the way you would do this is by going over here into page settings, gear icon on the bottom left, go into settings, and at page layout, you're going to go to Elementor canvas. And that's going to hide the header, the footer, and then you can build out the header and the footer by using sections just like you built out the rest of the website. This is an annoying thing because you have to do it for every page and it's more difficult to change, but for tutorial purposes, I urge you to do it because it's pretty much the same process. But for Elementor Pro users, go ahead and keep this as default. And then you're going to go into your dashboard and go under templates, theme builder. Now, once you're in templates, theme builder, on the left side under sidebars, we're going to choose header. On the top right corner, you have add new, so go ahead and press that. And we're going to close this because we don't need it. And this is where we create our template for our header. The rest is pretty much the same as building out an actual page, just like we did before. So first off, let's go ahead and add in a section with 3 columns. Because you can tell over here we have 1 column over here, 1 here, and 1 here. On the middle, we need a logo. But first off, we can tell they are not the same size. So we're going to make the middle column much smaller. So let's go into our first column, go under column width, and set it to 40%. Let's set the second one to 20, and the last one to 40 as well. Now in the middle one, we want our logo. Now there's a couple ways to do this. You could use an icon, which is going to allow you to add in a link, add a hover effect. You could use an image, but we're going to use this site logo. And this is the logo we said before over here in our customizer. Under site identity, this is the logo that gets pulled into this site logo widget. Now there's not much to this. Basically, we're just going to go under style. And at width, we're going to set it to 100%. It disappears. That's because we need to give it some height. Now, I find it easiest to just control this with height alone. Just put the width to 100% and then just control the size with the height. You can tell if I make the height smaller, the logo gets smaller. So that's the way I do it. So I'm going to set this to 35 for now. And now we need our actual menu. We're going to drag in a nav menu widget into our first column. Now, you can really put anything in here. That's the beauty of it. You can put in any widget, but you're probably going to want to stick to the basics. So a nav menu is the basic way and the easiest way to create a menu. Now you can tell it's empty. There's nothing showing up. That's because we have not actually created any menus yet. So first off, let's go ahead and publish this. And this is where you add in your display conditions. You basically tell your header where to display on your website. By default, we're just going to include entire site. That means it's going to show up everywhere, but you can go ahead and add conditions, include, exclude. For example, if you wanted to exclude it from a certain page, you're going to go exclude, singular, pages, and then you just search for the page you want to exclude. In our case, we only have the home page, and we definitely don't want to exclude it there. So we're just going to go ahead and include entire site, and then save and close. Now we can tell our header is already live on the website. It doesn't look or work the way it's supposed to, but it's there. So let's go ahead and create the menu. To create menus, you're going to have to go into your dashboard again. And when you're here, you're going to go to Appearance, Menus. Now, once you're here, you're just going to name your menu. I'm going to name it Primary. And just click Create Menu. And then on the left, you can see all your pages. These are a few pages I created before, just for the purposes of this tutorial. You can go to View All and you can see all of your pages, or you can add in custom links. For example, if I wanted to link to YouTube, I would just type in the link and the text I want displayed, and I can add it to the menu. And you can do this. It's going to be faster than making pages for the purposes of the tutorial. But I'm going to add in my pages. These are blank pages. I just created them so I can do this. I'm going to add them to menu. I'm going to delete the first one. And I'm going to go ahead and save this menu. Now I'm going to go back into my header. And I have to refresh this. So F5 or right click, reload. And automatically, since we only have one menu, it chooses the right menu. And then really all that's left is to just style this. You can choose your menu here. Under layout, I'm gonna go and left align it. And then I'm gonna go over to style. This is where I will put in a 0 for the pointer width. The pointer is this line you see under here. You can play around with this, make it thicker. You can add in some custom CSS to make it look different, or you can just change the color. But the point is, I want it to disappear, so I want it to be at 0. And there we go. Now the only thing that's barring me is that they are not all in the same line. And that's because they have a horizontal padding. Now the difference between using a horizontal padding and a space between is going to be pretty obvious. Let's just put in a horizontal padding of 0. And then let's put in a space between of 20. And this is what happens. And if I put in a 20 horizontal padding and a 0 space between, this is what happens. Because the horizontal padding affects all sides, and the space between just spaces the links out from one another. So I'm going to set my space between to 20 and my padding, horizontal padding, to 0. And I don't really need vertical padding, but you can obviously add as much or as little as you want. I'm going to leave it as is. Now I'm going to go ahead into our first column and make the layout vertical line middle. And do the same with all 3 of them. So our logo is nice and centered. Now on the right side, on an actual store, this is where your my account, my cart icons and stuff like that would go. But I'm just going to duplicate this. Duplicate the nav menu, paste it in, and leave it as is, and just change the alignment to right. And now I just want to play around with these spacings. Because the logo is just too far apart from everything else. So I'm going to go ahead and reduce the column size to 10% and make the first one 45%, the second one 10%, and the third one 45% as well. And then I'm just going to go over into my section, go under layout, and at width I'm going to set it to 1000. And I think this is looking pretty good. Now what we need to do is make this sticky. I always make my menus sticky. So sticky means that they are always showing up at the top or at the bottom. They're always there when somebody scrolls through your page. And I do that because as a customer, I really hate having to scroll back up the whole website just to get to the menu. So the way we do that is by going into our section and going under advanced. And then we're going to go into motion effects and under sticky, set it to top. Now what's going to happen is this is always going to be at the top. So for that reason, we need to add in a background. Otherwise, currently the background is transparent, which means you're not going to be able to see anything and it's going to be annoying. So we have to add in a background. So let's go ahead and go into our section style, background type classic, and add in a white color. And then we're going to go into our border and set the border type to solid, unlink this, and just add a little bit of a border at the bottom. I usually add 1.5 pixels and I give it a color of gray, just so we get that nice little separation. You can't see it now, but you're gonna see it later. So I'm gonna go ahead and update this and then preview, and this is what I am left with. Now I wanna see how it looks on the left side, so I can just go ahead and click the logo because it's a link to the homepage, because it's a site logo widget. And this is what I mean when I say sticky header. See how it's always in place? The only thing I'm going to add now is a little bit of a padding to the whole section, 5 at the top and 5 at the bottom, just to make it a little bit bigger. Then I'm going to go ahead and add in another section, make the section background dark, so our primary color, and just add in a text editor, make it white, and add in some text. For example, free shipping on orders over $25. And I'm going to center align that. And then I'm going to go into text. I'm going to delete the last character to get rid of this annoying spacing over here. And once I got rid of that, I'm just going to go ahead and make it a little bit bolder and a little bit smaller. So I'm going to go over to our rem and I'm going to make it 0.875 rem and make the weight 600. Now I'm just going to go into my navigator and drag this section on top of that section. And I'm going to update this and check out how it looks. And as you can see, this top bar, since it's not sticky, Once we scroll down, it disappears, and once you scroll all the way back up, it shows up again. So this is our header pretty much done. Now we have to make it responsive. So there's two ways to do this. The first is, let's just go into our responsive mode and go into tablet. And you're going to see our nav menu widget automatically becomes a hamburger menu. It's no longer text and links, it's a hamburger menu that when clicked opens up like this. Now this is a good option, but you can tell it makes the whole section look huge, which kind of ruins the whole aesthetic of it. So the way you go about this is, first off, if I actually had 8 links over here, and I had them split up into one menu and the second menu, for my mobile, I would have to make a whole new menu with all of them in it. So if I wanted to open like this, keep that in mind. And I would obviously go ahead and delete the right one because I wouldn't need it. So the way I would do that is by duplicating the section, like I'm going to do right now. And the first one, the desktop one, I'm just going to go ahead and go under advanced responsive and hide it on tablet and on mobile. And the second one, which we're going to create specifically for mobile and tablet, I'm going to go ahead and hide it on desktop so it doesn't show up on desktop. And you can tell because it is grayed out. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this nav menu in the last column. I'm going to go ahead and size the columns a little bit differently. I'm going to go ahead and make the first one 35%, make the second one 30%, and make the third one 35%. So that adds up to 100. I'm going to go ahead and first off show you the best way to do this by using the actual nav menu. And it is not by including it in your section with your logo. You can of course do that, but what's going to happen is every time you open it, the whole section gets bigger, so your logo is not in the same place. It's all over the place, just like the nav menu, just like this. So the way you do that, for example, would be to leave your logo and whatever you want in your last column, for example a contact us icon, just in one section, and just again duplicating the section and making the actual nav menu its own section, and then just adding and playing around with margins. Adding a negative margin so that basically this lower nav menu sits over here. So when you open it, it doesn't affect the logo at all. But that is not the best way to go about this. And neither is just having this open like this. There's a much cleaner way that's going to allow you to make your menus awesome. So the way we do that is, first off, let's delete this nav menu from our mobile version. We don't need it. But we do need a hamburger icon that's going to open up our menu. So we're going to do exactly that. We're going to add in an icon. We're going to change it. We're going to upload an SVG. I already did. And you're going to choose the hamburger menu, insert media, align it to the left, and let's style it. I want the color to be as is. I want it to be smaller, so I'm going to set the size to 35. And under hover, I'm going to give it the accent color, add in a little bit of a padding on the top, because you can tell, even though we have our column content aligned to the middle, the actual icon is not in the middle. So we're going to go ahead and add in a little bit of a padding, 5 pixels at the top. And obviously, go ahead and change the tablet and mobile paddings as well, just like we did before. But I'm going to skip that step because you already know how to do it. So once I do that, I just want to go into my icon, content, and under link, we're going to go and click dynamic tags. Now we're going to choose under actions, we're going to choose pop-up. And we're going to press the pop-up again. And under action, we're going to keep it as open pop-up. And over here, we're going to choose our pop-up, but we don't have a pop-up yet. So that's the next step. But let me first update this real quick and make it responsive for mobile as well. So we do that by making our column width 33% on each column, so they are all in the same line. Just like this. Just maybe make the icon a little bit smaller and just play around with the paddings and the margins and the details. But what we're going to do is once somebody clicks this icon, it's going to serve as a link that's going to open a pop-up. And by doing that, we're going to be able to control exactly what content somebody sees. Now that may not seem like a big deal, but when you think about the alternative, when you think about how limited the nav menu is, this is actually a really awesome thing because it allows you to put any content you want into that pop-up. So we're going to do that by going into our dashboard, going into templates, and choosing pop-ups. just press add new pop-up or on the top over here. And we're going to name it. We're going to name it mobile menu. Create the template. And again, we're going to close this library because we don't need this. This is a simple way to get designs really fast. You basically get stuff that's pre-made so you can just change the content. But we're doing this from scratch. So just close this. And now when it comes to making a mobile menu with pop-ups, there's 2 tips I want to give you. The first is avoid intersections. And the second is whatever you do, do it on desktop first. We don't need this pop-up to show up on desktop. We already have our desktop header. But for some reason, and this may just be my experience, but in my experience, I have a lot of issues if I just ignore the desktop side of things and go and make it responsive for tablet and mobile. And I have issues that I do not have with regular content, but I do have them with pop-ups. Just keep that in mind. So first off, let's go into our settings. We access our pop-up settings on the bottom left corner, and we're gonna set the height to fit to screen. So it's full screen every time. We're not gonna show the overlay, and we're gonna hide the close button as well, because we're gonna again use an icon to close the pop-up, because you have way more control. We're gonna set the entrance animation to slide in up. So it slides up. And we're gonna set the exit animation as slide out down. And we're gonna make it 0.4 seconds. I think anything more is a little bit slow. Then under general settings and previous settings, we don't have to change anything. You can leave the box shadow, or you can just delete it by pressing this back to default. I'm gonna delete it. I'm gonna set the background type to classic, and I'm gonna choose my color as primary, so we get a dark menu. And under advanced, I'm just gonna press disable page scrolling, so when this pop-up is open, people are not able to scroll up or down the page. And now I'm happy with the pop-up settings. I'm gonna go ahead and press publish. And we don't need any conditions here, because we're gonna open it manually with a button. But you could add conditions, triggers. For example, when somebody scrolls a certain percentage of the website, you can open the pop-up automatically. Or on page load within a certain amount of time. And then you have advanced rules where you can, for example, hide them for certain users or hide them on certain devices. But we don't need any of these. So we're just going to go ahead and press save and close. So now that we saved our pop-up and we set the basic settings, let's go ahead and put in our content. First off, I'm going to create the first section with 3 columns. I'm going to give it a little bit of a padding at the top first off. 30 I think is going to be fine. And then in the middle column, I'm going to go ahead and add in an icon and add in our site logo. And I'm going to upload the black version of the logo. And I chose the black one because the only way you can edit icon colors by using the icon widget in Elementor is if the icon, when you export it, the color has to be set to pure black. So hashtag 6 zeros. So hashtag 000000. Anything other than pure black, and it's just going to be that color. You're not going to be able to change the color over here in the style. So I'm in style, and I'm going to change the logo to white. And then I'm just going to go ahead and add in the link to our website over here because I want my header logo to open my homepage. And then I'm just going to style it. Nothing fancy, just added a hover and made it bigger. On the left side, I'm going to add in an icon that I'm going to use as a close pop-up button. The reason I'm going to put it on the left is just so that it's on the same side as the hamburger menu, so when somebody opens it up, they can close it back at the same spot. So I'm just going to really copy and paste in this icon and just change the icon. Go into my media library and upload this X menu. Insert that. So first off, I'm going to change the size, make it 35. And then I'm going to go ahead and go into the column and I'm going to vertical align everything to the middle, including the logo. And then I'm going to go into my icon, go under content, and in link, I'm just going to delete this one. And I'm going to go ahead and go to dynamic tags, find pop-up, select it and press right on it. And then under action, I'm going to choose close pop-up. And once I press that, the pop-up is going to close. So I don't really have anything to add to the third column, but if I did, it would go right over here. And now I just want to make this responsive. So I'm going to go under tablet. And a tablet, it looks fine. The only issue I have is it is not full width. And I'm going to go into my settings, so my pop-up settings. And at width, I'm going to set it to VW. So that's our viewport width. And I want it to be to 100. So that means it's going to be full width. And now I would just go ahead and add it paddings, make this align to the left, add in a padding over here. You already know how it goes. And I'm just going to go into our mobile. And on mobile, we get this. And we have to fix this. So I'm just going to go ahead and go into column width, 33%, and do the same for the second two. The next thing I would do is add in a new section. And you're going to have to do this by duplicating this one and just clearing it of styling and just clearing the content out. I'm going to delete all of the columns except one. And to make the actual menu, I'm going to use an icon list. Go ahead and delete all of the ones you don't need. Just change the text. Remove the icon by going over here and pressing this. Add in your link over here and just duplicate it as many times as you need to. I'm just going to go ahead and have the same thing 5 times. Then go under style. I'm going to add in some space between 10. I'm going to align it to the left as is. I don't even have an icon, so I don't need to style this. But if I did, this is where I would style it. But I'm just going to go ahead and style my text. Make the color white. Make the hover color accent color. And make the typography a little bit bigger. Make it 1.5 rem and 600. And the last thing I would do is add in my contact details over here so that when somebody opens the menu, they have them available all the time. The only thing that's wrong is on mobile, we have to make this column 100%. And after this, it's just a matter of adding in your content. Whatever you want, however you want it styled, you just go ahead and treat it as a normal section. The only trick is using the close button and the open button and keeping in mind that it's best to avoid intersections and it's best to do as much as you can on desktop. And now I'm going to go ahead and update and save and close this. And then I'm going to go into my header and I'm going to refresh the page, F5 or right click and reload, refresh. And now I'm going to go into my tablet view. I'm going to choose my icon and under link pop-up, I'm going to go ahead and search for my pop-up. So my pop-up is named mobile menu. So I'm going to just type that in and choose it and update everything. Refresh the preview and check out how it looks. Now I just forgot to make this responsive for mobile. So I'm going to go ahead and make every column 33%. Update it again. And let's go to our live site. Let's see how this looks on our live site. And now I'm just going to inspect this so I can make it smaller and bigger. And you can see it's nice and responsive. The mobile menu works. And if I open the hamburger menu, you can see it opens the pop-up. And if I press the X, it closes the pop-up. And the same thing on mobile. And we also get this entrance animation and exit animation. So that's really all there is to it. Now this is obviously not very styled and it's missing content. But the point is you can do anything with this. You can put in any widget you want into your actual mobile menu by using a pop-up. And you have way more control. And you can open and close it using icons, which you have full control over as well. So this is a great method. And it's the one I use every time I'm building a website because it just allows me to do anything I need to instead of just being limited by the basic nav menu. So this is what it's supposed to look like. It's pretty much the same thing, except it's styled a little bit better. There's an icon here and there's contact info here. So we're going to move on to our footer now. But if you want to finish the menu, go ahead and create something like this. So let's head on over to our footer now. So in the theme builder, go under footer and add in a new one. And now you can tell we have two designs over here. I'm going to go ahead and prepare the first one. You can go ahead and prepare the second one to challenge yourself a little bit, but let's go with the first one for now. So you can tell this is made from 3 sections. The first one has 4 columns, the second one has 1 column, and the third one has 1 column. So let's go ahead and do that. First off, we're going to add in a section with 4 columns. And we have to add in our logo first. Choose a site logo. Left align it. Make it bigger. Just like we did before. Now you need to put in a heading or a text editor. I'm going to go ahead and put in a text editor. Go ahead and change out the text with info@wordpress.com. Add in a link. And it's automatically going to add in a mail to link to info@wordpress.com. And you can tell the link has this red color. It's not styled well. So the way we fix that is by going into our site settings and going to typography. And over here we have the link. And we can change the link here. I'm going to change the color to this. I'm going to change the typography to Inter 1 rem 500 600 for, so it's a little bit bolder. And on hover, I'm going to change the color to accent. And just like that, we styled our link. Go ahead and update that, exit this. And we have our link, and I'm just going to skip the number for now. It's the same principle though. Just that instead of a mail to, you would put in a tell. Just like this. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it as is. And I'm going to head on over to our second column, and I'm going to put in a heading. Name it product. Make it smaller because it is huge. Make 1.25 rem. And I'm happy with this. And now I just want to add in an icon list. I'm going to go ahead and delete the icon again. Delete these two and just rename them. Duplicate. Rename. Duplicate. Rename. For all of them. And then we go under style, and we're going to style it a little bit, add in some space between, make the text a little bit bolder, change the color, give it a hover color. And now I like the way this looks. We're also going to go ahead and go over to the section and add in the background color, make it gray. So now just go ahead and duplicate this one twice. So we have 4 of them, and delete the empty ones. And just change in the text, change the links. I'm going to change this to helpful. And change this one to frequently asked questions. Return policy. And you get the point. So just go ahead and do that. Add in all of the links you need. Then on the last one, we're going to put in a form. Now first off, I can tell these headings are not bold enough, so I'm going to go ahead and make them actually bold. And then right click, copy and paste style. Copy and paste style again. Now over here, I'm going to go ahead and delete the icon list, and I'm going to go ahead and drag in a form widget. So we're going to keep it simple for now, but with Elementor forms, you can do some pretty powerful stuff. You can redirect people after they fill out the form. You can redirect them to any page. You can email them, but that's a whole another tutorial in itself. So for now, we're just going to keep it simple. Go under form fields. I'm just going to delete the name because I don't need it. I'm going to delete the message. I'm going to stick to email. You can tell the type has to be set to email. So it collects emails. We're going to go ahead and get rid of the label. So we're only left with the placeholder. And we're going to leave it as required so people can't send an empty form. On buttons, we're just going to leave it everything as is. Perhaps make the size medium and make the form fields input size medium as well. So it's a little bit bigger. If we go under collect submissions, you're going to see collected submissions will be saved in Elementor submissions, which means that when somebody applies to your mailing list is their email is going to show up over here. The last thing you have to do with regards to just collecting emails is just go to email and change the to and go info@var.com, and then you can just change the subject, leave the message at all fields, and you can set the from email, and this is going to change who the email is coming from. So if this were a live website, you would want this to change this to info@var.com as well. So now we have our form set to collect emails, and it's going to send them to our own email, and it's going to send it from our email. So basically we're sending the form that somebody filled out to ourselves, just so we have, we're notified. And then after actions, after submit, over here you can redirect, you can connect it to different mailing providers, you can open a pop-up, you choose email to, so you can make another email that's going to go to the person who filled in the form, such as a thank you email or thank you, here's your coupon code. But by default, we're just going to collect submissions, and we're going to email ourselves so we are notified when somebody applies. You can also set in custom messages under additional options, but we're not worried with that right now. So let's go ahead and style this. We're going to leave the columns gap as is because we only have one column in each row. We're just going to increase the rows gap, and it increases, you can tell it increases the vertical space. We're going to leave the spacing and everything alone. We're just going to go ahead and go over to our field, and under border color, we're going to unlink this so it goes to 0, and we're going to unlink the border radius so we get those sharp corners. And we're going to do the same thing with the button, except that with the button, we're also going to change the text color, and we're going to change the text, make it a little bit bolder. And on hover, we're going to change the background color, and we're going to keep the text color as is, i.e. white. Our form currently says send, but let's say we wanted to say submit. So you go under content buttons and just change it over here. Maybe the rows gap is a little bit too big now, but that's our email form pretty much done. So whenever somebody adds in their email and clicks submit, you're going to get notified you got the email, and you're going to collect that submission. And if you want to redirect them, or if you want to send them an email, you go over to content and go under actions, under submit, and just add them over here. So the next thing we have to do is add in some padding to the whole section. We're going to go ahead and add in padding to the top 30, and at the bottom 30. It's quite not enough, so we're going to go with 50 and 30. 30 at the bottom is going to be enough, I think. And over here on our first column, you can tell we have, this is not really aligned well. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a negative margin to the logo. And I'm going to go ahead and add in a negative margin to the link as well, because I think it's too low down compared to other links. And this looks pretty good. You can play around with this and get it to look perfect. But for now, let's go ahead and add in our social icons. But we are not going to use the social icons widget. We're going to use the icon widget because it's easier to work with. So go ahead and make a new section, 3 columns, and just add in our first icon. Once we add in the icon, just go ahead and go Facebook, I think is the first one, if I'm not mistaken. No YouTube, so just go ahead and add a YouTube icon. Make the view stacked, add in your link, and then just change the size and the colors under style. And just repeat that for all 3 of them. I'm just going to copy and paste in the icon. And when I copy and paste it in, I'm going to go ahead and change the icon to Facebook. And on the last one, I'm going to change it to Instagram. And these are all in the library by default, so you don't have to worry about having to upload them yourself. So now we have these 3 icons, and they are spaced way too far apart, and they are way too large. So I'm going to go ahead and change the size of each to 20. I'm going to go ahead and right click, copy and paste style to each of them really fast. And now we're just going to go ahead and limit how wide the section can be so they come together. And we're going to go ahead and go under layout content with boxed, and we're going to go with 300 in width, and it's still too much. 175 is going to look right about right. And now we just want to add in the background color to the whole section. So you can tell now when we add in the background to the section, the icons are white instead of gray. So just go ahead and change their secondary color to white to gray. And that is all you have to do regarding the icons. Next up, we just have a copyright. So we're just going to add in another section with the heading and just add in the copyright. Make it 0.75 RAM, so it's kind of tiny. Make it 500. Now we're going to drag in a text editor widget right below the heading. We're going to go ahead and type in privacy policy and terms and conditions. If you make these two websites, you just add in 2 links. If you make it one, just add in 1 link. But I'm not going to add in any links. We already did that. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. Make them center aligned. Change the size back to 0.75 RAM. Make it 500, just identical to the copyright. And just add in a negative margin at the top. And the last thing we have to do is add in the background to the section. And add in another section, but we're going to do that at the end. First off, let's make this responsive. Let's go under tablet, and we're just going to add in some paddings. You already know how it goes. Maybe unlink the paddings on the columns so they're not as squished together, but still you can tell the columns are too squished together. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing we did before. Go into the first column and make the width 50% and do the same for all of them. And this way we're going to get 2 by 2 instead of all 4 being squished in the same line. Then just go ahead and add in some padding or a margin at the top of the bottom ones or at the bottom of the top ones. 60 looks right about good for me right now. I'm going to add in some padding to the section with the icons. And I'm pretty satisfied with the way this looks on tablet. Now I just want to go ahead and go over to mobile and just fix the margins. I'm going to go ahead and make the site logo be center aligned along with the email, because I think it looks better. I'm going to go ahead and increase the negative margin of the email to -15. And then it's just a matter of editing the paddings and the margins. So just go ahead and in the section, we're going to go and make the padding 50 at the top, 20 on the left, 20 on the right. And we're going to leave it at 0 for the bottom because we're going to control it with this one anyhow. So for the individual columns, let's go ahead and add in paddings. So I'm just going to go ahead and add in a 40 padding at the top of every column. Now let's go into our social icon section and make each column 33%. So they are next to each other, not on top of one another. And just keep the section boxed, and you can play around with the width here. Add in a little bit of a padding at the top, maybe 30 should be right about right because we have a padding on each individual column as is. So now that's our footer pretty much done. Let's go ahead and check out how it looks. And the footer looks and works great. We're missing a spacer here, so I'm just going to go ahead and add in a spacer real quick to the page, edit it with Elementor, and just copy and paste in the spacer. Update this again, and let us preview changes. Let's see what we created. And here it is. Here's our hero section with our categories and our clickable columns. And I actually created a few versions of this. So if you want to challenge yourself, it's in the design. You can try this layout, or you can try this layout, or even this. So the next section we have is our parallax scrolling motion effect, where the bottle goes into our box. Our review section, our conditions and icons, our logo slider, and our new arrivals and our footer. And on tablet and mobile, it looks like this. On tablet, and on mobile, this is what our website looks like. We see our header over here. And it's fully responsive. It doesn't matter how big or small the screen is. This is going to look good everywhere. Now, if this were a live website, I would go in, I would check all the paddings, all the margins, all the spaces, measure them out, fix them, to really get that consistent feel and look, make everything polished. That's good practice, and something I really recommend you do when you're creating websites. Make sure the things that are supposed to be consistent actually are consistent. But for now, the only thing we have to do is go into Edit with Elementor, go under Elementor Footer, just press this. And we're going to go ahead and just at the very bottom, we're going to add in another section. We're going to make the section background style classic, make the color primary, add in a heading or a text editor. I'm going to go with a text editor. Make the style of the text editor white. Center, align it. Typography, I'm going to make it the same as this, so 0.75 rem. I'm going to make the weight 500. And then I'm going to go into text, so I avoid that annoying spacing at the bottom. And I'm going to type in designed by Realeza. But you are going to put in built by, followed by your name. Because you just built a fully responsive, fully functional website. And you should be proud of that. And if you can build this, you should not have any issues using Elementor and building websites in the future. Because you have a good understanding of the basics, and the basics are pretty much 80% of the work, at least. Because you're always using the same tools, the same techniques to get different results. Really, if you can build this, you can build most websites.
I hope you had as much fun building this as I did, and I hope you learned as much as possible as well. If you did, hit that thumbs up, and check out this video next. If you run into any issues or you have any questions, don't be shy, drop a comment down below. Thank you for watching.